Castelo Branco, which means White Castle in Portuguese, is another city in Portugal that arose around a medieval castle on a hill.
Upon entering the historic part of the city, we discover that it maintains the image of a white city.
Here, at the Foreign Visitors View YouTube channel, we continue to tell you about our trip around Portugal.
We are your guides,
Konstantin Krasovsky.
and Tatiana Andreeva.
This map shows the cities and towns that we have already covered in our previous videos.
And you can join our tours in Guimarães, Chaves, Bragança, Miranda do Douro, Guarda, Belmonte, Monsanto, and Idania Avelia.
Subscribe, hit the like button.
And leave your questions in the comments.
Castelo Branco gets its name from the prior Luso-Roman fortified settlement.
Called Castra Leuca or Albi Castrum, on the summit of the hill called Colina da Cardoza. Both Leuca and Albi mean white.
And Colina means the hill.
However, the castle walls are not white at all. We found them in different places along the slope.
At the foot of the hill,
In several places on the slope.
and at the very top.
In addition to the two partially preserved towers rising over the city, which we eventually reached,
Near the place where we managed to park, on the clock street, we found a beautiful clock tower, Torre do Relógio.
it is believed that it was built either on a Roman or medieval foundation.
But it was significantly rebuilt in the 19th century and renovated in the recent past.
It can be seen from different points in the city and is rightfully considered the symbol of the city, being as white as almost all the buildings around.
The castle construction is believed to have been carried out by the Knights Templar between 1214 and 1230.
Little is known of the town's history before the time when the Templars got here.
We talked about the Knights Templar in our video about Monsanto.
There they were active back in 1171 under King Afonso I Henriques.
And Idania Avelia is also located on the territory where the Templars built fortifications.
But in Castelo Branco, this happened under another king, Afonso II, who ruled after Afonso Henriques and after Sancho I.
In 1214, that is almost 60 years later, King Afonso II bestowed this land on the Order of the Templar Knights, entrusting them with its fortification and defense.
On our way between the two previous points, Monsanto and Idania Avelia, Constantine told us that from a huge list of castles in Portugal, he had chosen those that seemed the most interesting.
It is impossible to visit all of them during the short winter holidays, even with our busy schedule.
In addition to the Templars, at least two other religious orders were prominent in the history of Castelo Branco, that is, the Franciscan Order and the Order of St. Augustine.
Soon after entering the city, we find a square and a church nearby.
This is the church and convent of Nossa Senhora das Graças, also called Igreja da Misericordia, the Church of Compassion, as in many other cities in Portugal.
Built in early 16th century with the money of Rodrigo Rebelo, who participated in Indian campaigns, for some time it belonged to the Franciscan order.
Like other Christian orders, the Franciscans initially united around the idea of renouncing luxury and wealth.
Then the church was transferred to the Order of St. Augustine, originally uniting hermit monks.
And in 1834, Queen Maria II of Portugal, known as an educator and a good mother, banned all religious orders.
In the square near the Church of Misericordia, there is a monument to Bartolomeo da Costa,
who lived in 1553-1608.
He is famous for being the chief treasurer of the cathedral in Lisbon.
And in Castelo Branco, he established a hospital of Misericordia in his family's house on Rua de Ega, close to another building of the Church of Compassion.
We pass by the museum, which is in the former bishop's palace on our right, and find ourselves on the street separating two parts of the famous city park. More precisely, the Episcopal Park on the right and the City Park on the left.
However, both paths are connected by a beautiful overpass that attracts more attention than the park itself.
Another significant object in Castelo Branco, which can be seen from everywhere, is the Church of St. Miguel, also known as the Archangel Michael.
In some places they write that this is a cathedral, but this church was a cathedral from 1771 to 1881, when Castelo Branco was the center of the diocese.
We have already mentioned a couple of cities in Portugal that gained or lost their importance due to the movements of diocesan centers.
Castelo Branco and this church may have been luckier because now the diocese has two centers at once, and the Church of San Miguel is a co-cathedral.
Not far from the cathedral square, we saw an unusual sculpture that looked like an anatomical specimen.
It was erected in 2011 to commemorate the 500th anniversary of João Rodrigues de Castelo Branco, better known as Amato Lusitano or Amatus Lusitanus, who was a famous 16th century Portuguese Jewish physician who contributed to the study of the circulatory system.
There is another more famous monument to this physician in Castelo Branco.
There is also a hospital and a school that bear his name.
However, like many doctors, scholars, and authors of Jewish origin, born in the Iberian Peninsula, fearing the Inquisition, he was forced to wander and work in other countries.
We talked in more detail about the fate of Jews of the Iberian Peninsula in the video about Belmonte.
It is not very easy to climb up to the castle.
The streets are narrow and most of them can only be walked on foot.
We examined the dilapidated main tower of the castle.
It offers a wonderful view of the city. And all the sites that we have already talked about.
At the top of the hill there is another church, Igreja de Santa Maria do Castelo.
It is believed to have been built back in the 13th century at the same time as the castle.
However, it was seriously damaged during several wars and was rebuilt in the 19th century.
We go down a different street. Here is the museum of the artist Manuel Cargalheiro.
It is located in a building called Solar dos Cavaleiros, that is, the Knight's Estate.
Here, on the initiative of Bishop of Guarda from 1753, there was a convent of St. Mary Magdalene intended for women who converted to the Christian faith from Judaism.
A little further down is the former Domus Municipalis, which housed the city council, library, and even a prison.
And now a translation agency. And opposite is the building of the district archive.
This is what we could see in Castelo Branco in less than an hour.
This was one of 6 towns that we explored on this day, January 1st, 2018.
There were also a lot of interesting things along the way.
Look, for example, how about 20 minutes before entering Castelo Branco, we went down to the Poncel River, which we have already seen in Edania Avelia, and crossed it on a bridge.
On the way, we discuss that we especially like to travel through the areas of the Alpine orogenic belt in southern Europe and northern Africa.
But unlike some other countries, if a speed limit road sign is placed on a Portuguese road, this is not to ridicule the driver, but a valid recommendation of an appropriate speed limit to pass a specific curve of the road.
And we really like this too.
We hope that you also enjoy traveling with us.
Therefore, subscribe to the channel, put thumbs up, and share the video with your friends.
Your guides were with you,
Konstantin Krasovsky.
and Tatiana Andreeva.
See you in the next city or country.